Welcome back, and thank you for joining me on the How platform. This is the How platform where we share lessons about faith, lifestyle, and purposeful living. So, first, I want to say a special welcome to all our new subscribers. I appreciate you, and I also want to thank all the people who have been sharing these videos. If you have not subscribed yet, please remember to hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell. So why is the numbers of subscribers important? Is because that is how we grow the channel and that is how we enrich the conversation. My son asked me, he said, Mom, how many subscribers do you have now? I said, I'm thankful for every one of the subscribers I have. As much as I want to grow it, I'm thankful how far we have come, just barely a month that we started this channel. So thank you, all our new subscribers. So in the past videos, I've been talking about the principles that guides a successful life, starting with clarity. And we say clarity is a function of light and truth. And then we went ahead to talk about courage. And we say courage comes from stepping in to step out, because you want to first of all find the courage that comes from within before you could leverage the courage that comes from others. And then in the third video, we talked about consistency. Anything that is worth doing well is going to bring fear. You're going to be afraid. And then your first step out to do that thing might not yield the result that you're expecting. There are times that we want to start the business, the first products that we launched didn't have the marketing didn't work, and the launch wasn't successful. That doesn't mean that it's a failure. We are learning something as long as we have learned something from the process. Consistency is courage on repeat. You want to go ahead and repeat the process in such a way that you are learning something and you are iterating on the process based on what you are learning. And that is the place of consistency. And then we went ahead to talk about calmness. Because every step of a successful life, calmness is required. After you find clarity, you want to calm down and assess your next step. After you have found your courage, you want to calm down and assess the process and assess the system and the structure and the routine and the cues before you go to the next step. And then after you have found your consistency, calmness is also required. You want to continue to be taking some break and to be asking yourself all those difficult questions. That is the place of commitment. Commitment asks questions. Commitment shows up. Commitment stays there. Commitment understands the process. Commitment understands what is needed. That was the conclusion from the last video, and the videos are all available in the channel. Feel free to check them out because each lesson builds on the other. So where am I going with the lesson for today? Because there are times that we are committed to something that is not in our purpose, that is not part of our purpose. There are times that we are very, very committed consistently to something that we don't have capacity for. And that is when stress comes in, and that is when you're not feeling fulfilled in that thing. So commitment is very, very important. It leverages the elements of diligence and discipline. But there are times that we need to assess what we are committed to or the agenda we are committed to. The topic that I'm going to talk about today, and I want to teach today, the topic that I want to talk about today is contentment. The book says godliness plus contentment is great gain. Godliness plus contentment is great gain. Yes, I have about 80 subscribers now. I'm thankful for them. I'm grateful. Yeah, how far we have come. But does that mean that I want to stop there? One of my kids asked me, he said, how many subscribers do you have now? I said, we have about, at that time we had about 40. I said, we have about 40. He said, Mom, you're doing well. I was happy with myself. And he said, Mom, do you know that when you get to the 1,000 subscribers, you get this? When you get to the 100,000 subscribers, YouTube sends you a plaque. I said, how come this boy knows so much about social media? Anyway, they keep raising the bar for me. And I have capacity for it. Because contentment is the middle ground between greed and complacency. Contentment is the middle ground between greed and complacency. When you look at greed and complacency, both are driven by the same selfish motives. When you ask greedy people why they want to do something, say, oh, I want the raise so that I can buy a new car. Oh, I want to start the business so that I can increase my income and buy a bigger house. Those are not bad ideas. Those are not bad motives. But you also want to understand, why are you stressing yourself doing that thing just so that you can, so that I can benefit, so that I can benefit? Yes, that we should take care of ourselves. We should think about ourselves. But greed says, I want it more. I want it more so that I can benefit. I want the raise so that I can benefit. I want the second job so that I can benefit. I want the business so that I can benefit. More. That is greed. And here is complacency. Complacency says, I don't want it because others will benefit. I don't want to step out and start the business because now I will need to start thinking about how to pay the salaries of others. I don't want to increase the level of my business now because that means I will need to start talking to some contractors in other countries, and that means I will benefit their business. So when you think about greed and complacency, you will realize that both are driven by the same selfish motives. I want to do it because I want to be the only one to benefit. And complacency says, I don't want to do it because others will benefit. Commitment is the middle ground. Commitment says, I want this, I want it because others will benefit and I will grow. Contentment leverage the capacity that you have. Contentment understand gratitude. And contentment understand capacity. So there are two things to contentment. It understands the capacity and is grateful for the current status. While I'm grateful for the current status or the current number of subscribers, I still would like a lot of people to subscribe to the channel, because what I'm sharing here is intelligence that will benefit a broader public. And that is why I would encourage you to hit the subscribe button if you have not done so yet. Let's talk about contentment. What is contentment? Contentment is being able to be what God wants you to be. Contentment is happiness with where God wants you to be. Contentment is gratitude with who God has called you to be. Contentment is gratitude about where God has placed you to be. Discontentment is not the opposite of contentment. Let me clear that one out before I pick on some other topics. So I've talked about greed and complacency, and I say contentment is the middle ground. And now let's talk about discontentment. When you are discontented about something, that could be a signal that there is a change in the season, that there is a time for a change. When you are discontented about your job, that could be a signal that you should start looking for another one. When you are discontented about your space, that could be a signal that there is an opportunity for expansion. When you are discontented about your situation, that could be a signal to pray. So discontentment is a good thing sometimes because it informs our discernment. There was a group of young prophets, and they came to their mentor, and they said, this place is too small for us. It's time to expand. When you feel that something is not feeling right and you are discontented about it, maybe you are discontented about a process, maybe you are discontented about a policy or discontentment about people, you might be sensing something that is not obvious yet. You know, when a woman is pregnant with a baby, her taste changes, her preferences changes. Even when people have not yet noticed the bump, There's a change in taste, there's a change in preferences. And that is sometimes how discontentment feels. Because the discontentment that you are noticing around you could be a sign that there is a time for change, that is the time for a change, that is the time for a change, that is a time for a change in the friendship and the relationship and the group around you. Maybe that's the time for a change and expansion, even for that business. That's the time to go back to the drawing board and bring out that idea that you have put at the back of the shelf. Discontentment sometimes is a blessing. Yes, discontentment is sometimes discernment, because it helps us to pay attention to the change in season, to the change in people, to the change in process, and to the change that is happening around us that is not obvious to the public. While talking about contentment, and I've said greed is the extreme of contentment, while complacency is another extreme of contentment. There was a story that comes to my mind. That story is from Genesis, about Father Abraham. You remember when those angels were just walking by? Abraham was not complacent. He didn't just sit down and check them out and said, who are these people? He went ahead to invite them. He made sure they were provided for. And then Abraham said, what do you want me to do for you? Let me make sure you are comfortable. And after making sure they are comfortable, those angels said, why are we going to do this and not tell Abraham? Apparently, they were on their way to Sodom and Gomorrah to send the judgment of God to that land. That was their mission. And Abraham, in his discontentment, sensed that these are not ordinary people. And he invited them, he fed them, and those people told him their mission. They told him they were going to Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abraham, who had a family member, his own cousin, Lot, who had left him at some point. Lot lives in Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abraham said, if there are only 50 righteous people in that country, would you still destroy? And he went ahead, if there are 30, if there are 10. And I think he stopped at 10. Abraham was not complacent. He was not complacent. He was ready to ask for more. And he would say, please, can I ask you, if there are 15 people, if there are 30 people, if there are 15 people, and then he stopped at 10. And then the angels left him. And Abraham went ahead to meditate. That was the first part. What do we learn from Abraham? Abraham was not complacent. He cared about other people. That is being contented. Contented doesn't mean that you are settling for less. Contentment doesn't mean that you are becoming less of whom God has called you to be. Contentment doesn't mean that you are keeping yourself small. Paul said, I have learned to abase and abound. I have learned to show being conservative and to show wealth. Paul said, because I can do all things, that is part of the capacity that is within you, to be able to know when to show up and show off, and to be able to know when to show up and show less. There is no insecurity in contentment. Contentment is not keeping yourself to be lower than the capacity that God has called you to be. Now, let me go back to the second part of the story. Now, the angels are now in Sodom. They went straight to the home of Lot and his family, and they told him, this is our agenda. We are here to destroy. You need to get out as fast as you could. His wife was dragging his feet. He himself was dragging feet. At some point, because his wife was following his own capacity from by hand, he didn't make it out of the land. He was turned to a pillar of salt. Contentment doesn't mean that you settle for less. It doesn't mean that you settle for less of your job, less of what you are qualified for. Contentment means you are raising the bar. Remember when we were talking about consistency, we said consistency, you continue to iterate on the process. You get to a steady state and then you iterate on the process and you achieve another steady state. That is how contentment works. It's a dynamic process. That you are contented with a 6-digit income now doesn't mean that you should not evolve to a higher level of income. There is always evolution in contentment. Contentment is a process and there is always evolution in it. You want to continue to reach out to the capacity that is within you. Don't keep yourself small. Keep evolving. Don't settle. Don't settle and say, oh, I am doing well. I am earning well. My family is doing well. There is more in you. John D. Rockefeller said, I want to spend half of my years making as much money than I could. And then the remaining years of my life, I want to use that money to enrich others. And the foundation that he has set up, even after many years that this man had left, still keeps enriching others. Don't be greedy to a point that you just want it for you. And don't be complacent to a point that you don't want it because it's going to benefit others. Reach the middle spot, the sweet spot of contentment that leverages gratitude and leverages your capacity. So the angels told Lot to get out of the land. Lot's wife was following from behind. He was complacent with the land where she was complacent. She didn't want to go ahead to the new place where God was taking them. And she looked back and turned to a pillar of salt. The husband, on the other hand, you might say the husband made it out of the land. The angel told them to go to a mountain. That mountain is where God has wanted to place them. Maybe that is what God is telling you now. I'm taking you to a mountain. I have a better plan for you. But Lord said, please just let me settle in this little city called Zoar. It's a small city. I think there's going to be safety for me. There is no carefulness in faith. Faith sometimes requires getting out of your safety or your safety net and pushing yourself out of your safety net. Lot settled down in Zoar. If you read the rest of the story in that Genesis, you will see that what happened to Lot's family in Zoar was full of regrets, was full of disappointment, was full of taboo. It was full of so many failures because the result of discontentment is a pain in the behind. When you are feeling discontented about your current job now, maybe that is the time to step out and start looking for another one. When you are feeling discontented about the relationship into your life, maybe this is the time to reevaluate those relationships. Because discontentment is discernment. Contentment is a simple linear equation. It's a simple linear equation because every aspect of that equation is positive. Godliness plus contentment is a great game. Godliness plus contentment is a great game. When you continue to evolve and you continue to say, I want more, and there is godliness in it, there is great gain. When you continue to set a new record and you continue to set a new goal for yourself, and there is God in it, there is great gain. When you continue to set a new agenda and you continue to set a higher milestone, and there is God in it, it's a great gain. The elements of contentment is gratitude. Everything you look at, just put something in front of you and look at it for a very long time. It becomes bigger. Contentment is a function of gratitude. Be gratitude for where you are coming from. Those days that everything about tax filing is very, very simple. Be grateful for those days. Be grateful for where you are now. Be grateful for where God is taking you. Be grateful for the pain that you have now. Be grateful for what is going to produce in you. Be grateful for the struggle that you have now. Be grateful for the growth that is going to produce in you. Be grateful for the state that you have now. Be grateful for the capacity that it's going to produce in you. Contentment is a function of gratitude. Lack of contentment is a function of distraction.